Hello, and welcome to the day's non-keynote talks in Curly Boy Theater. This is super exciting. I am Betsy, and I'll be hosting Curly Boy for the rest of the day. I'd just like to briefly acknowledge that I am speaking to you all from the lands of the Yagara people, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. So, we have so many exciting talks lined up today. Let's get on with it. Our first speaker is Deborah Azevedo. I'm very excited for this talk about PyLadies Brazil. So, Deborah is a teacher and a master's student in innovation with educational technologies at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte. She's one of PyLadies Brazil's co founders and has also contributed to the PyLadies Interim Group that worked before the PyLadies Global Council, especially with translation and internationalization. She's a PSF Fellow member, and for the past few years has been making an effort with the PyLadies Brazilian community with national and hyperlocal works. So, Deborah will be taking questions at the end if there is time. So please pop your questions into, I don't know which side it is, what even is the internet, the questions tab next to the chat tab in Venulus. And if we have time, we'll read them at the end. Thank you, Deborah.
Hi everyone, I'm speaking live from the past because here in Brazil it's a Friday night. So, good morning to you all in Australia, good afternoon, good evening, whatever you are. Um, I'll be talking to you today about how PyLadies Brazil became the biggest PyLadies chapter of the world. And well, Patsy already introduced me, but just to acknowledge, I'm a master's student in innovation with educational technologies, and I've been developing in educational software to help deaf children to get through their literacy process in a bilingual perspective regarding written Portuguese and also Brazilian Sign Language. I'm one of the PyLadies Brazil co-founders, a fellow member from the PSF, also a Community Service Award winner, and I've been elected as one member of the board of directors from the PSF. You can find me on Twitter at PyTab. And well, what does it really mean to say that PyLadies Brazil became the biggest PyLadies chapter of the world? First of all, I like to acknowledge what PyLadies is. So, we are an international mentorship group with a focus on helping more women to become active participants and leaders in the Python open source community. And our mission is to promote, educate, and advance a diverse Python community through outreach, education, conferences, events, and social gatherings. PyLadies also aim to provide a friendly support network for women as a bridge to the larger Python community. Anyone who's interested in Python is encouraged to participate. And well, going to pyladies.com/locations, you find all the locations of PyLadies all around the world, and you can find if there's a PyLadies chapter next to you. If not, you can even create one. And going back to what does it mean to be the biggest PyLadies chapter of the world, it's important to mention, and I'll be mentioning that throughout this talk, that Brazil is a huge country, fifth largest country in the world. So this talk is going to be about how we encourage people, especially those ones who live far from the city centers and the capitals, to create new chapters. And also to tell a little bit about how the growth of Python user groups in Brazil were also responsible to create this safe and receptive environment to create the beautiful community that we have here in Brazil. There are here in Brazil about 30 active PyLadies chapters. So we've been trying to figure out who's active, who's not active anymore. And well, this task force and this map with all those pins you're seeing, well, there was a lot of work that has been done before us, before me. And this is something that I'd like to acknowledge first in this talk. Well, one milestone before PyLadies Brazil creation was the creation of Python Brazil Association. And this association was created a long time before PyLadies Brazil started. So after some friends going to PyCon US with the will of sharing knowledge and work on new projects, they created Python Brazil Association, which is a nonprofit entity for that is responsible for legal and accountant parts for the organizers of national and regional events. And why this association that we called a PB is so important. Well, have you ever tried to organize an event? We are all organizing online events now, and I'll tell you, they're not easier than in person events. And while preventing people from going nuts with accounting and legal contract issues, PB started to solve this problem. It was created to work as a bridge, especially with accountability. And it's not perfect, of course. It's made with volunteers, and there are some people who are paid, like the accountants, but it's a great association that has been helping PyLadies a lot. And well, even before PyLadies Brazil creation, people were talking about diversity here in Brazil. Brazil is a very diverse country. It's huge, and it's one with the biggest socioeconomic disparities. But if you hear from the Python community here in Brazil, we want to make a national impact, a local impact. And you do that by talking about differences and not only gender differences. I love this picture, and it says, it's written in Portuguese, but there is a translation below. It says that our differences make the difference. We make the difference through our differences in the environment we are in. And us human beings, we differ in so many ways, not just gender, but race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, sexuality, nationality, socioeconomic status, neurodiversity, physical ability, and more and more and more. And one of the biggest challenges about being in this part of this community is how do we get all these different human beings to be in the same place and feel welcome and feel safe and ready to learn and ready to share? Well, there are some efforts that we can do in order to make it happen. One of the efforts that was also done before PyLadies was the creation of the Code of Conduct. So the Code of Conduct that we use here in our Brazilian community was written collectively. So there was a concern about this topic, about making people feel safe and welcome to participate in the events from the Brazilian Python community, even before PyLadies Brazil was created. Well, and I've also like to acknowledge what these wonderful women that I like to call our pioneers. Well, we have Tatiana Tanya, which is a friend, Rafaela Bazanella. They were women who paved the way for me to be here talking to you at PyCon Australia. Those were like the first women in the Brazilian Python community who were organizing events, and having these women in the organization of events at the staff speaking at the events, it gives us the notion, the sense of, okay, what do we also need to have in our events? Most of them are moms. So now in the last in-person conference we had like space for children. So the notion, the sense, the awareness that we need those kind of things, they come when we have these kind of people thinking and telling them like, we need that, we need that. So they paved the way. They were the first women in the Brazilian Python community who paved the way for us to have PyLadies. And I'd love to talk about Fernando, who is our official ambassador. So in 2013, some friends, they go to PyCon US and then they discover about the creation of PyLadies. Fernando was one of the people from Brazil who went to PyCon US, and then he thought, okay, this is great, but this is about empowering women, women empowering women. So he started to encourage girls from the Python community here in Brazil and his student, because he's a professor, to create their own PyLadies chapters, the local chapters here in Brazil. So Fernando was one of the first people that we talked about to discuss about PyLadies when we had the first chapter created here in Brazil. So this was the launching event of the PyLadies first chapter in Latin America, in the city that I'm speaking from, which is called Natal. And in this first event, in this launching event, we had more than 100 participants. And when we were organizing this first event, we would hear people saying that we wouldn't even have like 20 women. They would say, like, you're not going to find like 20 women who are interested in programming in Natal. And well, this kind of pissed us at the time, because it kind of took out our courage to continue. But we continued to believe that the women were going to show up. And finally, we had more than 100 attendees at the event. It was amazing. And for me, it was one of the best experiences as a speaker that I had in this launching event. So this was the staff team that we had in the first PyLadies event here in Brazil. And when I remember back then, when we were organizing everything for this day, we were really concerned and worried to create an environment to all the women that we knew were going to show up. And we wanted to make them feel safe and welcome and be in an environment that they were ready to learn, that they would feel safe to be open. So that was in 2014 in our first event. But the talks about PyLadies started in the previous year in 2013. And then when I look back, because that was some time ago, we also got to have our first national conference. So we had to celebrate 5 years of PyLadies Brazil. We had our first PyLadies Brazil conference, which was our national conference. And I was the chair of this event back in 2018. And then we had this idea to celebrate PyLadies' fifth anniversary of our national network of chapters. We planned this event organized by women, only women as speakers and attendees. So we had like this conference that it took place also in Natal, the city that I live. And this city was also the same place that PyCon Brazil at that year was happening. So back then, I was organizing this conference and working from like call for papers, finding a venue, getting a sponsorship, estimating catering budgets, and also gifts for the attendees. Um, and when I look at this photo, which is the official photo from PyLadies Brazil Conference in 2018, it fills my heart with joy, because we managed to have people from like 4 out of 5 regions of Brazil attending this conference, and free of charge. And thanks to the PSF and also to APB who could provide that for us, we could make that conference free of charge for all these women. And this conference had a lot of content, technical content, content about community management, and it was so rich. This day was so rich, and it was amazing. And that was the first one that we got. But then we had a second edition in 2019. We didn't have one last year due to the pandemic. The National Network of Chapters was working on other things, but we had the second edition in 2019. So we have there in the picture Thais Viana and Jessica Temporal. They brought PyLadies Conf to Sao Paulo, which was the state that hosted PyCon Brazil in 2019. So for this PyLadies Brazil Conf, the format of the event was a little different. They recorded the talks. They were published on YouTube. So if you go to PyLadies Brazil channel on YouTube, you will find the talks from PyLadies Brazil Conf 2019. But there was one thing in common from the first Pilates Brazil Conf and the second, which was the willingness to do its best for the community, being in doing that for women only. And this is very important to mention because some of our actions, some of our Pilates events in our Pilates Brazil community, in our local chapters, we do some mixed events. This one is specifically Pilates Brazil Conf was thought it was meant to be only for women. And I've been talking about organizing the first Pilates event in Brazil, organizing the first Pilates Brazil conference, but it's not only that. Here in Brazil, we have like regional events. We have 5 regions, and then we have regional events in each one of them. And starting organizing our events kind of awakened in us the ability to organize events also for the larger Python community. It kind of makes us feel like more capable of organizing not only the Pilates events, but other events as well. So again, we're a continental country and we have all those um, regional events. So in the north, we have PyCon Amazonia. In the northeast, we have Python Nordeste. In Midwest, we have Python Cerrado. In the southeast, we have Python Sudeste. In the south, we have Python Sul. So we have all these regional events. And it's important to mention that PyLadies are also in the organization of these regional events. So we have this idea, and I love this sentence like think global and act local. That's where we start the change. Because occupying those spaces as organizers of these events is one of the ways that we can change the big picture by having more women organizing, then having more women attending, and then having more women speaking at the events. So empowering ourselves to even be in the staff team, who would have thought, you know? But then we empower ourselves in that sense. And that is a step in our journey of change. Well, that's a lot of work. And it takes, and I like to say that it takes our most precious thing, which is our time. So Rihanna was right. It's work, 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 work. But sincerely, when I look back and I think of all the work that I've been doing for PyLadies, it kind of worked for me too, you know. Um, and this community is so amazing because, well, personally, I don't work with programming or software development or anything like that. I do software development like for my master's, but I don't work with that. I didn't even work with Python in my master's, but being part of this community gave me the awareness that being a teacher doesn't invalidate what I do for the community. It made me feel included in a way that I never thought I would. So when I remember the first event, I saw some flyers on Facebook at the time, like it was a long time ago, and I had lots of people who studied IT in my Facebook, and then they were sharing like these folders. Oh, do you know Python? Come join us. Let's make an event for women. And then I was like, I know Python. I can help. Like that imposter syndrome saying that I wasn't a developer or something like that, like coming all along. But then I had this feeling like, okay, I can do that. I can help with that. And then it made me feel included. And being a part of PyLadies, a community of women who love coding in Python, made me change my own ideas of belonging to a community. And well, we have this famous quote by Brad Cannon: come for the language, stay for the community. And it's very famous because it makes total sense. Like many times we look for the communities for the language, the programming language, something technical. that being part of the community or going to the events can offer us. But then when we meet the community, we see like more that is more than that. We make those friends that we see like once a year when we go to the conference, and we enjoy so many special moments when we see these people. Well, and I love this tweet by Mariota, and it says that the Python is the largest community run programming language on the planet, which is both a blessing and a curse. So, being organized by the community keeps the language freely available, but it relies mostly on efforts of volunteers. So I like to say a big thank you for all of you organizers and volunteers at PyCon Australia, for you who's been organizing events in person before the pandemic, online events during the pandemic. Thank you so much for your work and your effort. It's precious. And now that we started to talk about community, you might be asking yourself, like, what is a community? Well, I go to Google. And if I go to Google, it says that a community is a group of people like living in the same place, having things in common interests. So if we are from the Python community, we have at least the same interest about the programming language, among other things. And the Python community has like multiple channels of how you can get into the community, like PyLadies, like Python user groups. Personally, no channel is as important as PyLadies to me. And while this picture, I believe on your left, is a picture of our PyLadies Brazil co-founders finally reunited for the fourth PyLadies Natal University. Why finally reunited? Well, PyLadies Natal was the first chapter of Latin America and had its first event in 2014. But there was a time that Gabi, on your left, traveled to France to study. Katy went to Germany to live there, who is on your right. And then Clara, who's next to me, she had to take some time from the community. But the community did not end because the co-founders were gone. One of the best parts of this community is its organicity. We don't necessarily need the co-founders to be around all the time because the work is done for many other people. And as we talk about the community, it's really important, not only like when I think about PyLadies Brazil, which is a national network of chapters, but also in our local communities. So we should be aware when we think about diversity, because thinking about that and talking about that may cause some issues, and we can struggle to share a vision of what is good. So it's important to ask and make sure to the members of our communities if they feel that their perspective of what is good is being represented. Do they feel like they're being heard? And also, we shouldn't focus only the numbers. Do you people feel like they belong? Do they feel welcome? We should put our efforts on that. Because diversity, as Marlene said, is about demographics, it's about numbers, figures. Inclusion is about a sense of belonging. And when I look back to the first event, I felt so welcome and worthy that I was a part of it. And this is a picture of me giving my first Python talk at the first PyLadies Brazil event. And I was invited by the other co-founders to give this talk about how to use Python. And I remember I felt super nervous because we had like a morning of talks with amazing women who have been working as developers for a long time, professors from the university, and me. The other co-founders knew my different background. I am graduated in English. I'm an English teacher. And they knew that. And even so, they encouraged me to give this talk, and they knew that I could do it, even when I didn't believe I could. So this is extremely powerful. And when we think about our national network of chapters, we've been changing the scene of the Python community in Brazil. And we've been changing the scene of our biggest Python conference, Python Brazil. So I would like for you to take a look at these pictures. This one represents PyLadies at Python Brazil 2016. This other one, PyLadies Brazil at PyCon Brazil 2017. This one, my favorite because I was an organizer at this edition, PyLadies at Python Brazil 2018. And this one, PyLadies Brazil at Python Brazil 2019. So clearly the numbers have been changing over the years. And well, how is that possible? Collective funding, crowdfunding. We started to do this campaign, PyLadies at Python Brazil, in which PyLadies members from all over Brazilian chapters, they were able to answer a form about their participation in the community, if they would be attendees for the first time in the event, if they would present a talk or a tutorial, among other information. So the committee decided how to prioritize the financial aid among the applicants. And well, since Brazil is a continental country, it's extremely hard and financially hard to have our PyLadies to attend Python Brazil. So when we started to do this campaign, we had the Brazilian Python community as a whole helping us. So this is an important achievement for the community because it shows how the entire community works together, both in organizing and helping us financially. The Brazilian Python community works together with PyLadies Brazil, encouraging inclusion and diversity in its largest national conference. So here, just some numbers for you to check. So in Python Brazil 2017, we had 17 activities offered by women. We are going to see that the percentage number varies a little bit, but the number of activities offered by women grows every year. In 2018, we had a percentage a little bit lower, but the number of talks given by women increased. The same in 2019. And then in 2020, in our first online event, we had our first 35 talks by women, which was amazing. And we also have our assembly, PyLadies Assembly, during Python Brazil, which is our national meeting where we summarize the year in terms of actions that we did and what we want to do next. And we do that at Python Brazil because Python Brazil is the time that we have and the place that we have PyLadies from all over the country. So we can have like different ideas and perspectives. And what happened in 2020? We had a pandemic year. A lot has changed in our community. We had to change our events to online, but the network of chapters didn't stop. We had the first Papo Entre PyLadies, which is amazing, and I love to talk about that. And these were the wonderful women in charge of starting this project, Ceci, Gio, and Dandara. Papo Entre PyLadies was a project developed by PyLadies Brazil to promote the exchange of knowledge between our chapters. We had weekly interviews involving 2 interviewer chapters and 1 interviewee. And the first part of Papo Entre PyLadies was an interview about the story and curiosities of the chapter. And then we have a lecture from the chapter, a talk about content that they know. We also, in 2020, divided better our structured communication on Slack. So we have a group on Telegram with around 600 women, so many messages were lost. So we divided ourselves in work groups and study groups, all open on Slack. We also started producing material for an Introduction to Python course for women who know how to code in another programming language. So all the content, it's in our repo from PyLadies Brazil, and you can find all the materials. They are under an open license, which allows the material to be modified, redistributed, being necessary to maintain the same type of license. And this project was only possible thanks to all these amazing women who were dedicated to this project. And well, I'm almost at the end of it. And we don't see PyLadies as a different community. It's just like an open door to the broader Python community, making people feel comfortable with the support that we provide. And you may be asking yourself, like, how can I help? There are various ways to do that. Buy us a t-shirt, help us financially. Look for women to give talks and not just about community. There are plenty of women who are more than capable of giving great technical talk. Uh, and yeah, like listen to us. Listen to us. I believe that listening to us is the main point of how you can help. Listen to us, listen to our concerns, our complaints, because we are the ones who are living it like in our skins. And I want to leave you with a question. We're working so much to have the community going on, even in a pandemic year. So, how do you see the future of our community in 5 years? How is PyLadies going to look like in 5 years? And I really hope it's more diverse and beautiful as I can see now. Finally, I want to leave you with this quote by Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Being part of PyLadies empowered me so much. It made me believe in myself, feel that I'm capable. I know those people are there for me and they will always remind me in those days that we are blue and we don't feel capable. They're there. PyLadies Brazil gave me a network of really close friends that I would never, that live like far from me and that I would never meet if it wasn't for PyLadies. So I'm really thankful and it's so powerful how they made me feel. And that's what I want for other women, to have them feel like they're capable, they're worthy, they're good. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you have any doubts, I don't know. I think we don't have time for questions. I've been speaking so much. But you can find me on Twitter or send me an email if you have any questions or doubts. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm sure the whole audience feels as I do, that just seeing the joy in your community has like warmed my heart and like inspired me.
I'm glad.
Um, yeah, and I know just how much work goes into community building and organizing. I'm sure many others in the audience do. So, congratulations to you and your whole community on what you've built.
Thank you.
We don't have time for questions, but there are some good questions there. So, do you have some time, Deborah, to go into the text chat in Venulus after this to answer some questions in the text chat?
Yeah, of course.
All right,
I'll be
everyone.
there.
So that's the Curly Boy Theater chat in the channels section in the Venulus menu. I will copy over all of the questions into that chat, and then you can have a nice chat with Deborah. Thank you again, Deborah. That was a wonderful talk,
Thank you so much for
and
having me.
we'll all be back for our next talk at 11:15 conference time. Everyone, see you shortly.